Welcome to Sports Talk with the Cowboy.
Welcome and thanks for riding with the Cowboy. Well, tonight I'm going to have a special shout out to Caden, who's recovering from a surgery. He's a good friend of this show and a supporter of the show. And DJX and myself would like to have a shout out to Caden to get feeling better. And before I start the show tonight, I had a little young man by the name of Adam, second grader from Avon Park, come up to me in a store the other day, and he followed me down an aisle. And I didn't notice the little fellow till he got up close to me, and he looked up and he said, "Are you the Cowboy?" And I said, "Yes, I'm the Cowboy." He said, "My father and myself, we watch your show." I said, "Really?" And we got to talking. And he looked at me seriously and he said, "That DJX is cool."
That's a smart guy right there, Cowboy.
Yeah, he's a smart little fella,
man.
Adam.
Yeah.
Adam, we had a shouting out to you. God bless you. God bless your mother and your family. And thank you for your support. Thank you, Adam. And so now we're going to go on to the Buccaneers 21-15 victory over the Atlanta Falcons Sunday at Raymond James Stadium. It was a tale of two different games. First three quarters to 21-0 Tampa Bay. And in the fourth quarter, the Atlanta Falcons made a tremendous comeback and scored two touchdowns and a two-point conversion on the second touchdown and got in 21-15. And all of y'all that watched saw John Brady get the ball back, go back down the field, but he got stopped. And on third down, he was tackled by Grady Judd of the Atlanta Falcons. And it was a roughing the passer call against the Falcons, which gave the Bucs the first down, and they ran the clock out from there. So it was a victory by the Bucs, 21-15. Everybody's asked me all week, Cowboy, was it a roughing the passer? No, it wasn't a roughing the passer call. But we take it, and we did, and we won the game. I'm not saying that actually won us the game, but it certainly sealed the deal on the comeback for the Atlanta Falcons. 21-15 Buccaneers, good game by the offense at spurts. It was Leonard Fournette and Mike Evans and a sprinkle of a receiver here and there in that. Leonard Fournette scored two touchdowns. He gets the game ball. He toted the freight on the ground for 64 yards. It was over 100 in the receiving yards. He was a dual threat both on the ground and in the air for Leonard Fournette. Mike Evans caught the ball, moved the ball down the field effectively. Gage did catch some passes. Let's not take Gage out of the question. But again, Julio Jones, and here affectionately on Sports Talk with the Cowboy, we're going to call him Julio No-Show Jones. That's his new name. Didn't make much of an appearance. If in any appearance, I didn't see him in any play. I don't even know if he'll play this week. So maybe we can take some resolution in as Buck fans that Julio Jones as a reliable receiver is just a myth. It was a myth when he left Tennessee. But we're going back to the game. There was 5 sacks. Winfield got a sack. Villa got a sack. And yes, Joe Tryon-Sharinka, which we always give a hard time to here with Sports Talk with the Cowboy. Not that he doesn't have potential, but against the Falcons, he got a sack. So we did get 5 sacks in the game. The defense did stop the Atlanta Falcons completely stone cold. It was 21-0 going into the fourth quarter. But in the fourth quarter, they came back. But it was a very good game for the Buccaneers. There was no noticeable injuries except in the secondary. Sean Murphy-Bunting, Mike Edwards, and Carlton Davis suffered serious injuries. Carlton Davis did, a hip pointer. Sean Murphy-Bunting and Edwards, I don't know their condition at the taping of this show, but we did have some injuries in that secondary of the Bucs going into this week's game against the Pittsburgh Steelers in Pittsburgh after getting romped by the Buffalo Bills. And I mean beaten like a rug outside on the clothesline. They got beat down by 40 points against the Bills. So they're going to be very upset, the Steelers. They have a standard of play by the Steelers. Mike Tomlin is going to be laying in wait for a good defensive struggle against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Bucs travel to Pittsburgh Sunday, and if the Bucs can win and prevail, they'll be 4-2. We hope all things go well this week. We don't know what's happened to Keyshawn Vaughn. He's missing in action. He could stay Leonard Fournette on letting Leonard Fournette carry the load completely. Rashard White, the running back from Arizona, the rookie, had some catches. He made some running plays. and I know that he can catch the ball, a.k.a. better than Vaughn. But Vaughn can still provide legs. They're fresh. We've seen him make a 70-yard run against the Carolina Panthers. We know he can break them. Let him run a little bit. Bring him in a few plays. Don't leave him just sitting the bench. But anyhow, Keyshawn Vaughn, a no-show. Godwin played sparingly, but good most of the game, in and out. He caught a few passes. Nothing exceptional, nothing Chris Godwin-like prior to his injury. But he's been out there, and he continued to contribute. As we know, Cameron Bates suffered a concussion in the last game against the Chiefs. He did not return to play Sunday against the Falcons. I do not know whether his return on Sunday will happen against the Steelers. But that's the down home on the Bucs. Victory, 21-15 on the Falcons. It was an enjoyable game until the rally at the end. It got a little nervous, but the call finally went our way. Well, it wasn't a good call, but it went our way. So we're going to move on now to the rest of the games that took place, and we had a lot of them. We had the Cowboys against the Rams, and the Cowboys defeat the Rams in Los Angeles, which is remarkable. And also the Packers were defeated by the New York Football Giants, who are 4-1, by the way, in London, England, Sunday morning. Very, very big game there. So there was a lot of action. The Cowboys beating the Rams, of course, and then the Chiefs beat the Raiders Monday night in Kansas City. A close game. The Raiders had them on the ropes. First half, 17-0. And the Chiefs came back, and the Chiefs won by 1 point on a very couple bad calls in that game. So we had a lot of action this week. We'll have a lot of action next week. So, we'll try to keep you in on what's going on. Any serious injuries? Yes, Teddy Bridgewater got a concussion. There were other injuries throughout, but nothing that stands out at me that's significant to bring to you as far as injured first-string quarterback or any of that kind of information. We'll continue to keep you posted as we go into this game against the Steelers. We've got to go in there and be prepared to play a tough team, and we can't let the Steelers we can't let down in our minds that the Steelers just coming off a bad loss, because they're not going to play that way in front of their home crowd in Pittsburgh. And now we're going to go on to the Rays. Our Tampa Bay Rays, they ended their season with a loss Saturday in Cleveland against the Guardians in 15 innings. A walk-off home run by the Guardians ended the Tampa Bay Rays baseball season until 2023. It was a terrible, terrible 2 games to watch as Ray fans. We could not hit the side of a building with a car. We had no offense whatsoever. In the game on Saturday, we had 2 base runners, one on first, one on third, in the top of the 15th inning with no outs. And I knew if we could not score then, it was not going to be good. And we did not score, because in the top half of the 15th, the first batter of Cleveland put one over the left field wall. That ended the Tampa Bay Rays for the 2022 campaign. Rosarena played terrible. He had no offensive production whatsoever in this playoff or even leading up to it. Margot had no offensive production leading up to this. None. Zero. Juan DeFranco, in and out of Durham, injured most of the year. Never got the stick of running. I hope Juan DeFranco becomes the superstar of the Rays, and the fans of Tampa would love him to be, but he's going to have to be consistent and a lot better player than he was this year. And also, I don't want to leave out Yandy Diaz, another player that did not produce anything at all during the playoffs. And remember, Ray fans, the last 20 regular season games, the Rays won 4 and lost 16. They were 4-16 in their last 20 games at the end of last year to go into the playoffs against the Guardians. So we're going to hope for a better year next year with the Rays. The pitchers they have on the roster are still strong, but they're going to have to get hitters. The 3 ways they're going to have to win next year: hitters, hitters, hitters. Consistent hitters. Not just some that can hit every once in a while, because they surely did have no offense. None. So we're going to end it for the Rays. They made a good campaign. They got to the playoffs, but we'd have loved to see them go a lot further. But even going in, we felt they were kind of in a funk, and they never got out of it. We also want to bring up the Tampa Bay Lightning, who played their first game last night in Madison Square Garden against the New York Rangers. They lost 3-1 in New York, but it's a long season. They were the two-time Stanley Cup champions. They made it to the Stanley Cup again last year for a third time, and to Stanley Cup Finals, winning 2 of them. Can they do it a fourth year? I think they can. It's going to be a tough season, and it's going to be a long one. So just because we lost the first game doesn't necessarily mean anything. We'll wait to see in May and June what gives. And now I'm going to go to our questions and answers. And the first question tonight is from Pat in Tampa, and he wanted to know about the Rays and what I thought they could do for next year's team. And Pat, I think, again, we just went over that. I think what they need to do is they need to get some offensive weapons and batters. They've got to get hitters. They've got to get some more pitching, but they need some hitting. And the pitchers carried them into the playoffs, but leaving men on base all year long. They did this all year. They left men on base. No one that watches the Rays cannot know what they need. And they're going to need more than one of them. They're not going to be able to rely on the ones I read, including Juan DeFranco, because he's just not consistent enough to carry this team, regardless of what you paid him. So thank you for your question, Pat. And now I'm going to go to Caden. And Caden wanted to know about the new coach for the Carolina Panthers. And I know Caden's a big Carolina Panther fan. Klein is the new coach. He was the coach out in Arizona. He had 1 year. Then he was relieved of his duties in Carolina. He went back, in Cardinals, and he went back to Carolina. This is his first stint now as a new head coach. So he's got all these games, Caden. He's got the rest of this season to prove himself. And if he does, he might be the new head coach. He has the pedigree, and we'll see what he can do. He doesn't have much to work with, Baker Mayfield and that offense. The offense is terrible. And they really got a mess in Carolina. Can he turn and right the ship? I don't know. But Caden, I think he's a breath of fresh air to get rid of Matt Rule, because Matt Rule was a poison. He was a poison. So I'm glad Matt Rule's gone, and any NFL owner, don't hire Matt Rule. Okay, thank you for your question, Caden. And now I'm going to go to Ben in Tampa, and he wanted to know who I thought would be the next NFL coach fired before the season is over. Not just at the end of the season, because we're going to lose 4 or 5 coaches. I think Ron Rivera, Washington Commanders, would be the next coach fired if he doesn't get things turned around there in Washington, because I think he's going to be fired at the end of the year anyhow, but he could be fired during the season. And that's what I knew the question meant, during the season. So anyhow, that is the question and answers, and I really appreciate that question about who's going to be fired during the season. So thank you for your question, Ben. So God bless you all, and DJX, what you got for me?
Well, Cowboy, you know how we do it. Let's get right off into it. All right, Trent McDuffie returns to Chiefs practice. 4 players not working. What you think about that? Well,
they need him back, and 4 did come back, but he needs to get back in there too. Mm-hmm. But they did win that game the other night, and they still are leading that division out in the West, and and the Chiefs are still the Chiefs.
Mm-hmm. All right, rookie running back, Washington Commanders, Brian Robinson returned after gunshot injuries. What do you think about that?
Brian Robinson's story is, getting shot in front of the Orchard House, rookie running back, Washington Commanders. Mm-hmm. Inspiring story. Did not die, was shot, got back into summer camp late because he was been shot. It's hard for him to even, be alive. So
right.
For Robinson to have come back and then this year and step on the field, and I think it was a class thing for Washington to let the whole team lead, and him be announced at the end of their walk-on last week in their game, and him to go out there and play was a tremendous story.
Oh, yeah, so true.
And before we go to the next one, DJX, that Jeff Garcia jersey that you're wearing tonight brings back great memories of a tough quarterback in Jeff Garcia of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who led this team to playoffs and not given his due as a tough, hard-nosed football player.
Right on.
So I haven't seen that jersey, and I want to commend you on it because Jeff Garcia.
Well, you know how I do it. I got to switch it up a little bit sometimes. A true Bucs fan.
So well, that's true Bucs fan, and all you Bucs fans that are true Bucs fans, you're watching the Sports Talk with the Cowboy. If you are, that brings back some memories.
All right, appreciate that. Will the USFL and the XFL merge? It's a 2-part question. As a potential US XFL, just throwing a name out there.
Good name, DJX. Probably
Major
the name they'll adopt.
Football league, Major Football League, to be in comparison or competition to the NFL? What do you think?
Well, I think they could become that league with years down the road if they can continue to live. But their living space will have to be in the spring because they'll never live in the fall.
Right.
They've tried to do that. When they tried to live in the fall, they failed.
Right.
So I think they will become a league. It's going to be years. God knows when, 4 or 5 years down the road, that they're going to say, look, you got 8, we got 8. Let's have a game together. Let's join each other in the spring.
It's a possibility.
Sure it is. AFL and NFL merged. Why not? They've got their niche. I think it's a possibility.
All right. Here goes what I'm going to leave it off right here. Will the Lightning return for their 4th final? Another shot at the Stanley, you think?
I'm praying, like every sports fan in Tampa, that happens. I think they can. They have a lot of the players. I hate that Ryan McDonough's not there. He's up in Nashville and Palat's not there. Those two I miss. We still have Hedman, and we still have Blackjack. We have Stamkos. We have Vasilevsky, Kucherov. We have the core, but I wish we'd have had them too. But it's going to be a tough slug to go 4 times. But we got to have faith, and if anybody can do it, it's the Lightning, because I'd have never thought they'd have done 3.
Right.
And we got John Cooper as the head coach, and the Vinix as owners, and that says a lot about their team and their organization.
That's true. All right, well, I'm going to leave it off right there, KowBoy.
Well, God bless you, DJX.
God bless you, too.
Well, I'm going to run down a few games here this week in college. I didn't want to leave them out. We've got USF Bulls, which are terrible. They only won 1 game. They played tough against Cincinnati last week and lost by 4 points, and they played tough against the Gators and lost by 3 points. But they're playing the Tulane Green Wave up in New Orleans, Louisiana this weekend. And I hope USF can win that game and Jeff Scott can get some wins, because I think Jeff Scott's days of USF Bull head football coach are about done. He's probably going to end it a native Arcadian, so we've always been behind him. But that's the game for USF this week. LSU will take on the Florida Gators in the Swamp in Gainesville. The Gators can beat this team. I think they can beat this team. It's going to be a good game. That's going to be a good game. LSU and the Gators. Neighbors got that coach, that Gator team, where I think that anybody could have expected him in his first year to be. He's taking on a team that he did not pick, and they're a competitive team. They're competitive, and they can beat LSU. It'd be a big feather in his cap. That's their game. Alabama, Tennessee, the big marquee game this week. Alabama Crimson Tide against the Tennessee Juggernaut volunteer team we haven't seen since Peyton Manning was quarterbacking up there. They got a shot at knocking Alabama off this week. Big game. And then you got the Clemson Tigers against the Florida State Seminoles in Tallahassee, Doak Campbell. And this would be a big game for the Seminoles if they could somehow miraculously win that game. So that's what we're going to run down on the college this week. And now we're going to go to our games of the week, which last week's winner was Murray in Plant City, Judy from Lake Placid, and Bill from Sebring. So Bill has won 3 times, so congratulations, Bill. This week's games, this is week 6 games, the Bucs against the Steelers, the Vikings against the Dolphins, the Cowboys against the Eagles, the Bills against the Chiefs, and Cincinnati against New Orleans Saints. So those are great games for the pick this week. Get in the comments, put them in there, send them in there. It'll take you 30 seconds. And before we end tonight, I want to thank everybody for their support of the Ian victims. God bless you for all the volunteerism I see in the Floridians, because we're the best people. We're blessed by living in the greatest state in the Union. And I see a lot of that volunteerism, and God bless each and every one of you for the support of those people who are less fortunate, because it shows humanity, and that's what we need in this world anymore. There's a lot of humanity. And until next show, God bless you. KowBoy out.